Hi, my dear friends. We continue on with learning Rambam. Today, we're going to be learning the 8th chapter in the laws of the foundations of the Torah. We're going to be learning a very interesting, continuing on from yesterday, in regards to the idea of prophecy. We're going to be learning the specialty of the prophecy of Moshe. Why his prophecy was different than all the other prophets. As we spoke already yesterday, that his prophecy was not in an allegorical form, but rather it was pronounced, it was clear, and he was able to speak to God whenever, on a constant basis, so on and so forth. So he had a very special form of prophecy that was incomparable to any other prophets at either an earlier or a later point in history. And today, we continue in the idea of the belief of the Jewish people believing Moses in the fact that he was a prophet, and why and how they believed him. So let's get into it and we'll see. So we're learning chapter 8, in the laws of the foundations of the Torah, halacha number 1, the first law. The Jews did not believe in Moses, our teacher, because of the wonders that he performed. Because if a person's belief in a prophet or in the idea of someone being a prophet because of a certain wonder or miracle that he's performing, it's a little bit on a shaky basis. Because if the only reason why you believe in that prophet is because he did some wondrous act, well, maybe he did that act because of sorcery or because of magic. He could be a good magician, but he doesn't have any connection to prophecy. Being a prophet is an amazing and it's a very high level. And just because a person is able to do magic would not make him into a prophet. So just because a prophet does a certain wondrous act is not enough. We're going to be studying that this is one of the forms, this is one of the ways to know that he is one. But it's only revealing the fact that he is a prophet, but that doesn't make someone a prophet. So when a person, sees someone doing an act of something wondrous, miraculous, so it's only going to reveal to us something about him, about a deeper place within him. So over here, when we're talking about Moses and the specialty of Moses' prophecy, so of course Moses made many miracles. He split the Red Sea. He brought down the manna from heaven. He brought out water from the stone. The earth opened up to swallow Korach. So many different miracles that took place thanks to Moses, so to speak. But that's not the reason why Moses was doing all these miracles, so that the Jewish people should believe in him. Rather, these miracles were just out of necessity, out of the situation. The Jewish people came to the Red Sea, to the Sea of Reeds, and they were stuck. The Egyptians were going to kill them, so therefore, he had to split the ocean, and they had to walk through it. Or there was no food in the desert, so therefore he had to have a miracle that there's going to be manna coming from heaven, and so on and so forth. So it was because of the necessity of the time and the place that these miracles were taking place. But the reason why the Jewish people believed in Moses was because they saw on Mt Sinai that God was speaking to him. They heard it with their own ears, and they saw it with their own eyes. They heard God telling Moses, go and give this over to the Jewish people. And it was an unbelievable time where you have witnesses, where you have millions of Jewish people, literally. The Torah lists out that there were at least 600,000 men over the age of 20 at that point, and they had their wives and their children. So there was 2-3 million people at that time, definitely standing there watching this revelation of godliness. And it was, that's the biggest witness. There is nothing greater and nothing more real than to be able to hear God talking, telling Moses to command the Jewish people of the 10 Commandments. So, that was the greatest proof, so to speak, that Moses was real and he was talking the truth. And we have various verses in the Torah where we see how, every single person was at Mount Sinai hearing God, as it says that God spoke to you, all of you, everyone, all the Jewish people, face to face, and God, made a covenant with all the Jewish people at that time. And even though Moses had various, miraculous actions that he did before, for instance, the splitting of the Red Sea, or, back in Egypt, there were the 10 plagues and so on and so forth. So there was still a little bit of a doubt, in the Jewish people's minds about the truth of Moses' prophecy and the fact that he was, the Jewish leader, that God sent him, until they came to Mount Sinai. And when they came to Mount Sinai, then it was etched in their heart that Moses is 100 million% the truth. And this is factual. There were 3 million people, 2 million people watching this as witnesses of what took place. And this is, by the way, interesting to note. This is where we have a concrete proof, so to speak, for the truth of the Torah. Because the Torah wasn't just one day someone came up and said, well, God told me that you guys should do this and this. But rather, every single Jew was there and witnessed God speaking to them and telling them, this is what I want you to do. So, there was literally millions of people watching this, and they passed it on to their children and their children to their children, all the way till today. So that's how we have, the history and the passing down of the Torah to the Jewish people throughout history. It's an unbelievable thing, which I don't think there is anyone else that can have such a claim, so to speak, to say that God spoke to millions of people, telling them that this is what he wants them to do. It wasn't just one person, it wasn't just Moses on his own who was hearing the 10 Commandments, but rather all the Jewish people heard. Definitely the first 2 commandments. Continuing on, so the Rambam says that now we know that it's just like a case where you have 2 witnesses which come and give witness on a certain, scenario. So, at the case of Mount Sinai, all the Jewish people were the witnesses for the truth of Moses. And when Moses was sent by God to the Jewish people to take them out of Egypt, we have this famous story of the burning bush. So when he's at the burning bush, Moses tells God, well, I'm not sure that the Jewish people are going to believe me. So God tells him, so do a few miracles for them. You should make a few wonders. And for instance, his staff turning into a snake and so on. His hand turning white with leprosy. And that was because Moses knew that just doing a wonder for the Jewish people is not going to be enough. Because even though they would be able to see that he's performing miracles, but he still felt that it wouldn't be etched into their hearts entirely that he is talking the truth and that he's actually a messenger of God. So therefore, Moses tells God, I can perform miracles, but they still won't believe me entirely. So God says, perform them the miracles. Make your staff into a snake. But it's all just for now. Soon, very soon, in just a few months from now, we're going to be at Mt Sinai, and then they will see the real truth of you being sent by God. And that's exactly what happened. It came to Mount Sinai, and all the Jewish people were there. And they saw with their own eyes the fact that Moses was the messenger of God to give them over the word of God. And it's now, and because of that, no one can ever come later on and say, well, did it actually ever happen? Is it really true? Is the Torah really true? Is it really coming from God? Maybe, there is maybe this is just his history, embellished, a nice fairy tale or something like that. So the Rambam tells us that this is nothing. There's no discussion about this. This was witnesses. This was witnessed by so many people, by all the Jewish people that were there at the time of Mount Sinai. And it's as if you see something and then someone comes and tells you, oh, that didn't actually happen. I saw it with my own eyes. I was there. I know this. And this was passed down throughout the generations, all the way till us today. And it's not that, and it's because we saw it with our own eyes. That is why it is so concrete and so real. The fact that we got the Torah from God through Moses, with Moses being a real prophet, giving us over the word of God. And that is the chapter of Rambam for today. It's quite a short chapter, but again, a very interesting one. It's very fascinating, and it's very fundamental in our belief in God, that when we are here performing the Torah so many thousands of years later, we know that we have a very strong foundation of belief. It's not just someone having a dream and coming along and say, this is what you should believe because this is what I saw. But rather that we very clearly, everyone saw it with their own eyes, and they were able to perceive God. They were able to see that godliness and how God is talking to Moses, and eventually that's how the Torah was written and passed down from generation to generation, all the way till today, with us studying the Rambam, studying the law of the Torah clearly, precisely, to know what we should do and what we should believe. L'chaim.